Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1960 Japanese crime drama, The Bad Sleep Well.
いや、少し型破りじゃが大いに心情があふれと。いや、これは名演説や。
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I try to give all my reviews the passion they deserve. I'm reviewing every movie that has a 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm giving them all a score of 1 to 10. After I watch them and score them all, I will rank them from worst to best. I started in the 1920 silent movie era, and now I'm at 1960 with The Bad Sleep Well. This movie has a 100% fresh rating from the critics and a 92% fresh rating from the audience. It was directed by quite possibly the most famous Japanese director of all time, Kurosawa, and stars possibly the most famous Japanese actor of all time, Toshiro Mifune. Toshiro Mifune plays Nishi in this movie, and his wife is played by Kyoko Kagawa, who was also in the movie Tokyo Story and is still alive today at the young age of 91 years old. So if you're out there, thank you for all the great movies that you've given us. It also stars Kamatari Fujiwara as Wada and Takashi Shimura as Miri Moriyama. So this is not the first movie that I've seen directed by Kurosawa. I've also seen Seven Samurai, which I reviewed for the channel. Rashomon Yojimbo Sanjuro, which I will review for the channel because it's 100% fresh, and Ran. And out of all those movies, I will say that this is probably my least favorite, not because it's a bad movie, but just because I don't think it's as strong as all those other movies that I just mentioned. So when this movie opens up, we are introduced to an elaborate wedding scene. This is the wedding for a vice president of a large corporation's daughter. And at this wedding, there are just tons of paparazzi and tons of newspapermen. And it's through these paparazzi and through these newspapermen that we learn who each character is in the movie.
あの男一体前は何してたんだ。いや、よくわからない。岩渕の息子の友達らしいんだがね。その息子ってのは何してるんだ。いや、何にも。評判のドラ息子だよ。ほら、さっき花嫁を引っかかえてびっくりさせた。あの男だ。
So Yoshiko, who is going to be Nishi's wife, we learned early on in the movie that she has some sort of like ailment, some sort of lameness to her legs. This happened when she was riding on her brother's shoulders, when he was riding on a bike. I guess she was on his shoulders. She fell off somehow, and then she like terribly crippled her legs at some point. They make a big deal out of this in the beginning of the movie because they make it seem like no one wants to marry her, that no one wants to be with her, like she's some sort of pariah that was cast out of society because of this lameness that she has. And Nishi was the guy who swept up and swept her off her feet and was the one who took one for the team for marrying her, type of thing. I don't know, it's a little weird, but that's kind of how they frame it. So at this wedding, the photographers are basically talking a lot of trash on everyone in the corporation who is giving speeches or who's involved with this wedding. There's also a lot of arrest going on during this wedding as well, which I thought, I mean, it just adds to the complete chaos of this scene. So apparently in this corporation, they were offered this contract that everyone bid $9 billion on, and they said that they would do it for $12 billion, and then the extra $3 billion they pocketed and they kept for themselves. So there's a couple people, including this guy named Wada, who's arrested, who will later be questioned about their dealings and about taking this money, basically accusing them of embezzlement from the company. So while at this wedding, there's a large amount of arrest going on. The photographers and the media also talk about how they believe that Nishi is marrying this woman. So it's not like this thing he's doing because he loves her, because he fell in love with her, no one else wants to be with her, type of thing. They believe he's doing it so that he can move up in the company, because he is the secretary of this company, and his dad is now, his future dad is now going to be the vice president. So they believe that this is his way of kind of moving up the corporate ladder by marrying this pariah. It's going to be a loveless marriage. They really paint her in a bad picture here about her ability to be loved and for people to love her. While this is going on, there's some amazing cinematography going on here. Kurosawa is known for his long takes, for his close-ups, and for his tracking shots. And there's, a lot of evidence in this. In the beginning of the movie, there's a specific scene where everyone's kind of gathered around the bridegroom table, and you see this really long shot of the table, and the cinematography is absolutely amazing. The camera work is gorgeous. Kurosawa knows what he's doing here, obviously. He's one of the greatest directors of all time, but absolutely amazing. I will say that I thought in the beginning of this movie that I was really in a lot of trouble because I didn't understand a thing that was happening at all. I had to go back and kind of re-watch the clips that I recorded because I was completely lost throughout this first half of the movie. There's so much information that's thrown at you. The members of the press and the members of the media, they just throw so many names at you, so many positions at you, so much information at you that it's just a lot to take in. And I thought, wow, I'm really going to be in trouble here because I'm not going to know at all what's going on when the middle of the movie comes up. And that's actually what happened. I was very lost by the time the middle of the movie came around. But then there's one point where Nishi actually lays out what happens in plain speak, and he actually tells you exactly what's going on, and that was fantastic because then at that point I knew what was happening. But before that happens, the wedding cake is brought out, and it's a spectacular wedding cake. But then another wedding cake is brought out, and it's even more spectacular. It's basically in the shape of the building, the corporate building, but there's this weird type of, I think it's a rose or a flower or something, and sticking out of one of the windows in the building. Which will become important later. But for now, we're not really sure what's going on. At least I was completely confused as to what was going on here. But so after the wedding scene, after this is all done, the police have arrested this guy named Wada, and they've also arrested a gentleman named Miura. So they're both being arrested for bribery and for embezzlement and for taking kickbacks. And they're being questioned, and they're asking why the company bid so much for a project that they overbid for this project, and why the books aren't showing the information that they should be showing.
建設に与える工事費120億という金は国民が血の出るような思いをして出した税金ですよ。もちろん必要な工事費なら問題はありません。しかし入札は誰が考えてもおかしい。他の業者の入札価格は85億から90億止まりなのに。
Basically accusing Wada of cooking the books and hiding the money because he's this very good accountant and he's incredible at what he does. Now, of course, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't talk. They decide that they're going to charge him with embezzlement, and then they let him go and they let Miura go, but they don't really show the interrogation of Miura, just of Wada. When they get outside of the prison, Miura is handed a note from his company. It's a letter. He reads the letter, and the letter basically says, hey, we're sorry that you got arrested for embezzlement. We know you're going to do the right thing. So we're not worried about it because we know that you will, in your heart, you'll know what you're supposed to do, and you'll do it.
あくまであなたを信頼しているからよろしく。
So after reading that letter, he goes and he jumps in front of a bus and kills himself, which plainly shows that this company, after they have you embezzle money for them and after they do these crooked deeds, then if you get caught, you clearly are supposed to go down for it. You're not supposed to let the company go down for it. I don't know if that's a cultural thing or if that's just a 1960s thing. or if it's just a crooked thing where they're going to threaten these people if they don't comply. I wasn't sure at this point. I know later on what the answer is, but at this point I wasn't sure, like, why would he do that? You know, I get you got the letter, but why is he jumping out? Why is he jumping in front of a train, or in front of a bus? Sorry. After that, we are then shown Wada. Now, Wada, he chooses a very, very unique way of trying to commit suicide because he receives the same letter. Obviously, he's also being charged with embezzlement. He receives the same letter from his company, but he's not going to go for that jumping in front of a bus thing. You know, he's got to go out with a much bigger bang. And somehow he finds a very active volcano, and he decides he's going to throw himself into this volcano. I've never heard of that tactic for suicide before. I assume that it is an absolutely terrible way to die, and I don't know why you would just automatically choose that way to die. Like, of all the choices, I mean, it sets up for some really great camera work, some really great cinematography, some really great long shots, you know, some really great close-ups of him and Dyer trying to decide if he's going to jump into this volcano. But I don't understand the rationale behind it. I don't understand how he got to this point where he decides he's going to do this. But it's unique. I gotta give him that. Like, I've never seen this before in a movie. I don't think I've seen it in the movie since. Usually when something involves dying in a volcano, it's so horrific that it's not a suicide thing. And also, like, what random person, I don't know any random person who's just going to be able to find an active volcano. So props to Wada for being able to find an active volcano and actually trying to go through with this. But before he can go through with this, Nishi is there. Nishi followed him, I guess, because I can't imagine that Nishi is just going to guess that this guy is going to commit suicide in a volcano. But Nishi's there.
すいません、今すぐ。
And Wada clearly is worried and frightened at this point because Nishi just married the daughter of the vice president. So Nishi's like, what are you going to do to me? I'm here to kill myself. Like, why are you here? And Nishi then tells him that he's not going to kill him. In fact, he's trying to get revenge against the corporation. He didn't marry the boss's daughter, the vice president's daughter, to climb up the corporate ladder. He married her to kill everyone in the corporate ladder, to kill everyone at the top. We'll learn his motives later. But so he's on a mission. He's the one who bought that cake with the flour in it because it sends a message later on. But he's the one who's doing all these evil deeds against the corporation in order to bring them down. So he basically kidnaps Nishi and pretends that Nishi has committed suicide. He tells the corporation that he committed suicide, that Nishi's dead, while all this time he has him hidden somewhere, just completely like making him scared and paranoid that something could happen. Nishi also has a family, so he's taken Nishi away from his family, and his family thinks he's dead as well. He then takes Nishi to his funeral. He drives up to like where the funeral is and parks his car. Another great scene, like cinematography wise, it's another long shot with the car and the funeral in the foreground.
あなた、なんだってあなた私にこんな思いをするくらいならいっそ死んだ方が。
Absolutely amazing. The photography, camera work, top notch. Nothing could be better. So Nishi's watching kind of his own funeral, and he's going crazy in his mind because he's worried that he's like, even though the company is like trying to screw him over by making him kill himself, he's still worried that he's like disgracing the company by pretending that he's dead. And he says like, why can't you just let me kill myself? Just kill me. Like, I don't want to pretend this anymore. My family doesn't know that I'm still alive. They think I'm dead. Just kill me. But Nishi's not going to do that because he's a jerk and because he wants his revenge. For something we will find out later. So, you know, he's all on board on this. He's 100% on board. He's not going to stop what he's doing just because he's destroying someone's life. Someone on the lower, I mean, he's kind of like low tier enough on the company to where he didn't make like any of the decisions. He was just kind of the guy who was he was just saying yes and doing the evil deeds that the higher ups in the company asked him to do. Because this is the guy Nishi's decided he's going to torment, and he's going to just ruin his entire life, just to get his revenge on what he wants. So after he takes Wada to his funeral, he ends up setting up another guy who's kind of higher up in the company, named Shawara. So he makes it seem like this guy robbed from the company and stole money for the company. He sets up this elaborate plan in which they find money in Shawari's bag, and it looks like he stole the money. So he gets this same letter, Shawari, because it looks like he's like stealing from the company now too. And also, so when he decides not to kill himself, when he does not commit suicide, the company sends like an assassin to kill him. So clearly, the people who committed suicide, if they had not done that, the company would have just killed them anyway to kind of get rid of any of the paper trails, to get rid of any of the evidence, any of the people who could say that they had a hand in this. They were trying to get rid of all that. So they sent an assassin for Shirai. I know I'm saying his name wrong. I apologize. They sent an assassin for him, but Nishi ends up thwarting that and stops the assassin from killing him. He takes Shirai into his group of people he's tormenting. He then takes Shirai up into the room in the corporate office where he had that rose sticking out of in the cake. And he pretty much lays everything out here. He says, like, my name's not really Nishi. I am friends with the guy who's really Nishi. We switched identities so that I could climb up the corporate ladder and wreak revenge on the people of this corporation, because my father once worked for this corporation and they made him commit suicide out this very window that rose was sticking out of the cake. But it actually wasn't like a suicide. The company killed him. And now I'm getting my revenge on the company by trying to make sure everyone from the top gets murdered or, gets put in jail, or, he's trying to enact his revenge on this company. So, I mean, this basically kills like all of the sanity that Shirai has left. And Wada too has said he's kind of dead as well. But the big ups in the company think that Wada's dead for one, but they don't think that Shirai is dead. They know he's alive because the assassin didn't kill him. They went back and reported or whatever. So they think that, they can smooth this over with him. They can invite him to this dinner. They can offer him, some money or something. Say that they don't really think that he embezzled from the company. That was probably just a misunderstanding because it wasn't a lot of money to begin with. We don't need him blabbing about this $3 billion that we stole. And let's just try to, make the slate clean and just clean our hands and, offer him whatever he wants.
事情は岩渕さんから聞きましたよ。しかしどうもわからんのは白井君がどうしてそんなバカなつまみ食いをしたかということなんですがね。あなた方には渡すべきものは十分渡してある。
They invite him to dinner. He, of course, is completely stunned. He's like he just saw a ghost. He doesn't believe anything they're telling him. He stares off into space a lot. So they realize that he is a bit of a liability. So this other higher up in the company named Moriyama, he starts thinking that all these incidents that are happening in the company, maybe it's tied to a singular person. He thought that before, but now he's really starting to investigate it. So he goes around and asks, I don't know, like, they don't really show any of his investigation or like what he actually does to get to where he ends up. But he ends up with Nishi's mom, and he kind of like asked Nishi about his mom, how Nishi didn't have a father and all this stuff. Well, it turns out that Nishi did have a father, and the father worked for this company, and basically Nishi's dominoes are starting to fall over because his mom is basically telling this guy what happened. She then shows a picture of Nishi at the funeral because I guess he didn't know his father, so he kind of like showed up to the funeral where all the guests couldn't see him, and it looks it's the funniest picture I've ever seen because she calls him a kid, but he looks exactly the same age. It's like the same guy.
せめて写真かなんかありませんか、その息子さんの。
フリアの息子なんじゃないでしょうか。
But Moriyama obviously knows who this is and kind of connects the dots as to what's going on. Nishi is able to abduct Moriyama and then takes him to like these ruins where he locks him in this cage thing and like starves him to try to get information that he needs to put the final pieces together of his plan. He eventually gets the final pieces put together for his plan. I'm going to spoil the ending here. You're not missing a whole lot, but and then he calls, Nishi calls a conference, like a press conference for the next day to kind of go over everything that he's learned and uncover all this corruption and, let the newspapers know all the seediness that's going on. But it just so happens that Nishi and all of the cohorts die in a car crash that was set up by the corporation. The corporation gives a speech about how anguished they are that this happened. Nishi's wife kind of gets wind of this. Now, Nishi admits to his wife earlier in the movie about everything that happened, and he does say, like, I did fall in love with you. At first, I didn't love you. It was just for revenge, but eventually I did fall in love with you. And Nishi and her brother end up kind of disowning their father at the end of the movie, and their father's relocated, and, well, that's the entire movie. Nishi's dead. The two kids disown the father. Corporation gets off scot-free, and that's the entire movie right there. That's the whole synopsis. So what do I think of this movie? Well, the acting in this movie is fantastic. I mean, a lot of these actors were in Seven Samurai, all but except Kyoko Kagawa. She was Nishi's wife. She was in Tokyo Story, but the rest of them were in, I believe all the other ones were in Seven Samurai, the main actors that I mentioned earlier. They're all fantastic actors. The acting in this movie is fantastic. The direction is fantastic. The camera work is fantastic. The script, I think, is based off Hamlet. It's loosely based off Hamlet. I took a Shakespeare class in college, but I don't remember a whole lot about it. So, sure, I'll say, yeah, it's loosely based off Hamlet. That sounds great. I don't know. I thought personally, the first time I saw this movie, and it took me a while to understand what was going on. I didn't realize that the guy who fell out of that window was going to be Nishi's father. I don't know if that is a twist to anyone else, but it was a bit of a twist to me. I didn't see it coming. But to not understand a lot of the movie until the middle, this is probably just a problem with me. I couldn't follow it, to be perfectly honest. There's so much that happened in the beginning that I was trying to unravel in my mind and unravel everything that was going on that I didn't understand what was going on till like the middle of the movie. There was so much going on, and then there's like these side plots with the brother who blames himself for the sister being lame. Later on, we learned that Nishi didn't know his father, but he still wants to like seek revenge for his father. He captures two people who are really not high enough on the food chain to really matter in the corporation. So I think his plan is a little flawed in that way, where like these people, when they lose these people, it doesn't really matter to them that much. I mean, at the end of the movie, they just killed all three of them, and the corporation was fine. Like, what? I don't understand like what his end goal was. I realized he was going to go to the press with these two people that he had, but he basically ruined these two people's lives. But he was going to go to the press and try to convince the press that the corporation was stealing money and that here's the proof and everything. But I don't know if it would have really worked out in the way that he wanted to. I don't know if the plan was like as fully fleshed out as he wanted it to be. And at the end of the movie, you feel like he's going to start falling in love. And he does say that he fell in love with his wife, but I really felt like maybe she was like pulling him the other way, like maybe he wasn't going to pull through with his plan, but he still decided to do it anyway. He didn't have to. He could have, like, he even says at some point that he didn't really know his father, but he knew his father loved him. So I was thinking maybe the movie was going to take a turn when he was talking to his wife, like in these ruins, that, you know, I didn't really know my father that well. I have a really good life with you. Why don't I just continue this relationship with you? I think I would have rather seen it go that way, but it didn't go that way. I don't know. The story just wasn't there for me. It wasn't that exciting. I didn't think it was that engaging. Like, sure, like what's going on behind the camera, the cinematography, like I said, all of that is fantastic. The shots that he pulls off, the long shots, the close cuts, all of that is great. But it's just not as engaging to me as his other movies like Seven Samurai, Senjuro, Yojimbo. I was like bored through a lot of this movie. And I know I said this for my last review of The Big Risk, that I thought that was boring a little bit too. This movie is 2.5 hours long. And I really didn't, they could have probably cut at least 30 minutes out of it. I just thought there was so much random plot thrown in just for like plot's sake, that it didn't need to be there. There was just it just kept, every layer to me got more confusing and more confusing. And then it wasn't until like I said, the middle to end of the movie where I actually understand what's going on. I actually understand like who's who and what his final plan is. But I just don't like walking through like half the movie totally confused. And that's what I did with this movie. And I want to say that it's not just me, but maybe it is. There was just so many layers to peel back, and you have 2.5 hours. And if it's not exciting, if you're not really engaged in it, and if you're not really into the story and into the characters, I didn't think any of the characters were all that redeemable. I mean, you feel bad for the characters that he's torturing, because he's actually like torturing these people for no real reason but his revenge and his own ill-gotten gain. And you can feel bad for them, but they also participated in this extortion and this embezzlement. I mean, they obviously weren't the puppeteers pulling the strings; they were the puppets on the string. But they still were involved in it, and they still, they still did it. So you feel for them, but not as much. I felt more for Wada's family because of what they had to go through, not knowing he was alive. I mean, he's going to pop up. Well, he died in the car crash at the end, so they're going to think that he died, and then unless there's some cover up, they're going to find out that he was alive and he died in a car crash. So it's like they lost him twice, which is just terrible. It's like absolutely horrific. So I don't know. The story wasn't great for me. The characters, I didn't feel like there was. It just didn't feel like there was anything there for me to love about any of the characters. I mean, I really wanted to like Nishi just because of who he is. He's played by a buffoon, but he's just such a terrible character. And I don't know if he's like evil enough to pull off what he was doing. Like, he definitely has that drive to do what he wants to do. He definitely has that drive to pull this off. But I don't know if I believed it that much. I don't know if I believed that he could actually pull it off, or that he had the ability to pull it off. So I was a bit disappointed by this movie. I love Kurosawa movies. I gave Seven Samurai a 10. It was an easy 10. Some of my favorite movies were directed by Kurosawa, but I don't know. I can see why this isn't held in as high esteem as the other ones. I give this an 8 out of 10, even though I still had a lot of problems with it. There's still a lot there to like, and I'm willing to admit that maybe this is just something that I struggled with and not something that your average viewer or everyone would struggle with. Maybe I just had a bad day when I watched it. I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. So yeah, 8 out of 10. I hope you join me for my next review, which I think is through a glass darkly, I think it's called. So thank you. I hope you have a great day.